Okay, I'm ready whenever you are.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order. First item is, okay, I just called this meeting to order. Do we have public comment for closed session item only? No? Okay, are you here for the closed session?
Oh, nothing on email.
Then nothing on text.
Okay. With that, we got to do a roll call, please.
Trustee Rodriguez.
Here.
Trustee Jackson Miller. Here. Trustee Isaac Gonzalez. Here. Trustee Friedman. Present. Trustee Dorman.
Present. Okay, let's convene the closed session.
Yeah, there you go, yes.
See you in an hour. Thank you, Linda.
Ready? Okay. Good evening, everybody. Just call this meeting to order. Favorite part of the meeting is the opening with the Pledge of Allegiance, and Principal Broadhurst, would you like to introduce the students who will be our honor tonight?
We would, and so, if we, graduate, one of our seventh graders, Marcella Miller, one of our seventh graders at Levi Middle School. She was nominated by Science Teacher Ms. Work. And Marcella has been in our school district since kindergarten. She went through Soquel Elementary, got through fifth grade. And so without further ado, I'm going to ask Marcella to come on up, lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And
we will now cite the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Hands over your heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
School district. Staff, students, parents, and the community have the responsibility for each child's success. We are committed to ensuring each student develops the skills and confidence for lifelong achievement and is prepared to make a positive contribution to our world.
All right.
stay right there. Board President Mr.
So I have the certificate here that I really would love to read. And it's a great certificate, Marcella. Marcella really enjoys all subjects and thinks her teachers are amazing. She works hard for all classes and cares for everyone. She likes to ride her bike and hang out with friends and family and go wherever the wind blows her. Are you a sailor too? She is still finding her passion, and when she finds it, she'll love it and commit to it. One of her teachers wrote this about her. When in class, she goes out of her way to be kind and supportive of other students. She does things like take out her Chromebook to use Google Translate to help a non-English speaking student. She jumps in and offers to show the new student around school. She is consistently going out of her way to lead her lab group in a way that brings all students together and gets everyone participating. She asks others their perspectives and shows empathy and kindness to all. This is awesome. This is really, really good. This is really, 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 really good. And thank you for coming in.
Yes.
This is so we like to ask questions, and you said it's a wind blows, so you're sailing. Oh man, maybe it's sailing, but you really enjoy science.
Yeah, science is really fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we've been doing microscopes, and I find it really interesting just looking under a microscope and seeing what we can't see with our eyes.
You like astronomy as well, or do more the stars and?
Oh yeah, the stars. I mean, I love staring at them, but I don't really like. I don't really study them a lot.
Oh,
but,
okay. Well, if you see a light going across, that's the International Space Station. Sometimes you'll see it going across. That's really, I love watching that. But and then the Chromebook, I forgot, you use that for translating too.
Yeah.
And you do that with other languages too, to see, you listen to people talk and.
Honestly, not really. I mean, there's a student in my class, Steven, and I mostly use it to translate with him because he's Spanish speaking and I don't know a lot of Spanish. So I just like to, he translates with me and I translate with him and it works out.
Awesome. Any, I could hog the whole. Does anybody else have any questions or comments?
Well, I just, really lovely words by the teachers. And when I think of my young children going to middle school, I hope that they have friends like you. So I'm just heartwarmed by your presence there at New Brighton. And I wanted to ask you if you're interested in a career in the sciences.
In the sciences,
Or is
I find it really interesting, you know, just with everything, like just the videos and everything I've seen, like science is like everything, you know?
Yep.
I don't really see myself working as a scientist, but I know a lot of things that we do involved with science, and I just find that really interesting.
I don't have a question, just a comment. First of all, thank you for being here. Second of all, it's almost hard for me to believe you're in seventh grade. The way that you are speaking with us and engaging us in the eye contact and the way you project your voice, it is magnificent. Like you have a really incredible, mature presence, and that's I'm sure that's a talent and something that you maybe have worked on, and it's also really a gift that you can use, you know, to share with your community, and you know, maybe you might have a future where you want to do something involving public speaking. But we get the pleasure of meeting a lot of students and talking to a lot of kids, and the way you speak is really incredible. So thank you. Yeah.
So thank you for coming, and I applaud you for your courage. This is not easy to do.
Yeah.
And so I would say you nailed it. Are you a curious person?
Yes, I definitely, I like to, just like you said, I go on my bike, I go around, I love seeing things, and I always like just trying to find new things, and if I do, it's like really cool, you know what I mean?
So you try to learn how things work and operate?
Yeah, it's really interesting to see how they do. So.
Thank you so much for coming. I wanted to echo what Amanda said. I was so impressed by your delivery and also the way that you're answering questions. So
Thank you.
Here you go. Here's your certificate. Not to write all your thoughts.
Thank
Thank you for coming in.
Of course.
Unless you get a photo.
Yep.
You'll just kind of stand in that corner right there, Marcella, and look over this way. You'll get a picture with the board right behind you, principal. Come on in.
Yeah, no, over this way.
Yep, all right.
This way, yep.
Yep, there we go.
I'm the official taker. All right, perfect. All right, 1, 2. Now everybody look at Dad. Or sorry, over here.
Thank you.
Here you go.
We'd like to put that photo up on the website. Is that okay with you?
Pardon me?
We'd like to put the photo up on the website.
Absolutely.
All right,
Is that
thank
okay?
you. Thank you. What a credit.
Thank you all so
guys.
much.
Thank you.
Hey, Marcella, it's awesome meeting you.
Yeah.
You know, we all have
Thank you.
masks on, but we have great big smiles.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming in. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, next item is a motion to adopt the agenda as it stands.
I'll second.
All right. Did you get that, Linda?
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Okay. We have no items to report out of closed session. Consent agenda. Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda as it stands?
I'll make the motion.
Second,
I'll second, Carolyn.
Carolyn. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now close. Public communications. Members of the audience are welcome to address the Board of Trustees during public communication regarding items not listed on the agenda. For items not listed on the agenda, we request that you fill out one of the forms, which does happen. And then during your speak, there's only 3 minutes. 3 minutes may be allotted for each speaker and a maximum of 20 minutes for each subject matter. The trustees cannot take action on these matters unless such matters are placed on a future agenda according to law. If the item is on the agenda, you will have the opportunity to speak at the time the agenda item is discussed. Please address the board president, and these proceedings are video recorded. Board members shall hold the education of students above any partisan principle, group interest, personal interest, or personal interest. Okay, so I have,
Can I just add, anybody watching virtually who wishes to comment? The text feature is not working right now, so if you wish to comment virtually, please use the email address, public comment, all one word, public comment @suesd.org. Thanks.
okay, well, let's start with Mr. Mike Bayal. Pronounce it right? Bayal, okay.
My name is Mike Wild. My homemade social 30 years ago. Silicon Valley Tech for 35 years. Only child now out of the system, attended Catholic school, elementary, Main Street. We right in the middle, graduated from Silicon High in 2017, graduated from Stanford University. Thank you for that.
I find it hard to hear. Can he take off his mask and be
No.
more articulate?
No, you have to keep your mask on, sir.
Turn it up, please.
I'd like to address social emotional learning, aka critical race theory, which is being taught to our children by the SUESD. Address Communist Party Marxist indoctrination, race baiting, and the psychology of mob behavior. Whatever we call it or don't call it, it's my fear that when the doors close in the SUESD, that our children are being taught that white people are inherently racist, that people of color are eternal victims, and that this dynamic will never change. Let me be direct. Any board member, administrator, teacher, or staff member that teaches children this horrific, soul-crushing message is by definition themselves a malignant racist and emotional predator. Those who simply stand by and watch it happen, are also aiding and abetting and complicit in this tragedy. This spring, I noticed the marquee outside in Brighton, middle touting Black Lives Matter, but perceived that it's not only a highly divisive term, but a highly divisive organization. I personally believe all life matters are part of the message that not all non-insane humans should espouse. I subsequently met with the Brighton Critical Grade authors for almost an hour, as well as Superintendent Scott Triple on the phone for about an hour regarding his concerns. Well, those men were gracious in giving me their time, and since neither were truly aware of the social and cultural monstrosity they got themselves into. I learned from both gentlemen that while the district has distanced itself from the Black Lives Matter organization, it has unfortunately also attached itself to the Black Lives Matter model. I believe every one of us knows that the Black Lives Matter meme is divisive, just payback, and is completely unhelpful in addressing the issue of race in the United States or the world. Even worse, I learned the board had decided early on to attach itself to the George Floyd movement before all the facts were in on the case. By doing this, the district had decided to put its thirsty emotional fingers on the scales of justice while abandoning the concept of legal due process. By doing this, the district was teaching our children to address issues of the greatest importance using emotion instead of facts and good judgment, thereby functioning as race-mongering emotional predators on a grand scale. This SUSD message helped in part to drive the subsequent race riots, $2 billion plus in damages, 30 plus lives lost, thousands of Black small businesses lost, and hundreds of past thousands of official Black lives lost to liberal run cities deciding to defund their police. And now the life of Kyle Rittenhouse hangs in the balance. This would be comical if it wasn't so tragic. There is a moment of an epiphany when finally everything becomes crystal clear. We who have not given into Marxism know this as the red pill moment, when you realize everything you think you know is artifice, and you think see things as they really are. My hope is that one day all will finally see the light and move away from this noxious, anti-human, soul-destroying, critical race theory movement that we use for the human race. Once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. James Whitman. Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So could someone briefly explain when you could actually respond for 20 minutes here?
You have 3 minutes to say your piece.
Yes.
Yeah,
okay,
3
but I'm
minutes,
asking
right.
a
And then
question
20 minutes is for a whole group on the same subject.
For a whole group on the same
On the
subject.
same
So if there was an item that was added to the agenda, the group could speak for 20 minutes at a later date.
When
Okay, I'll inquire about that later.
Yeah,
I
okay.
am intrigued
So this
about
is
that.
an item not on the agenda, so
No, it's not on the agenda, but I'm gonna make a comment on the excellent information that this gentleman shared. So out of the.
Just so you know, I'm starting the 3 minutes now, so.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought I was running 3 minutes. but
No,
okay.
I'm starting now,
Okay,
so
thank
you
you.
want to be.
So my name is Jim Woodman. I've lived in this county since 94. I realized on Monday night that the last time I got any kind of pharmaceutical product was in 2006. My eyes were almost swollen shut Monday night. Boy, do I feel better. Is that poison oak? So during the atrocities that happened when that gentleman was killed, when the riots happened, 35 of the 37 cities were in areas of the United States where there was a Red Shields Bank, and that's the Federal Reserve Bank. So they deliberately destroyed those neighborhoods so they could buy that real estate for pennies on the dollar. So what I actually came to talk about is about forgiveness. I speak in front of the Board of Supervisors quite often. They don't really like me. The law enforcement and clerks like me because I kind of talk about what's going on for everybody's best interest. So besides last Saturday being my mother's 76th birthday, on November 13th, 1986, Anthony Fauci strong-armed Ronald Reagan to indemnify vaccine manufacturers from harm. The 13 vaccines that they were giving to everybody, including children, they were going broke. So that's the first time. During the Patriot Act 2004 was another indemnity for vaccines. Now we have this whole situation with somewhat forced vaccinations. You could lose your job, you can't go to school. You know, I'll segue for a second. I think that schools are the most dangerous places besides public locations because of the routers. Those routers are plug and play machines that are designed to run 300 laptops. Those things can be controlled from another country. But back to these vaccines, I've done some research. I went into the sheriff's department because I'm working on a document to stop these vaccines, and I wanted to see the paperwork that they use to make their job easier. Couldn't really get that, but the information I'm going to supply, they can just use. There's a lot of confusion with Western medicine. There was a doctor who, after practicing for 25 years, wrote a book called The Medical Mafia. Tried to take her license, took her to court for 11 days. She ended up losing her license.
30 seconds. Sir.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. She shared a set of questions that patients were asked. She describes Western medicine as petrochemical, finance, sickness over cures, profits over health, where the politicians are like puppets and control the doctors. Even our president is a puppet. So the question that was asked is, what percentage of you trust your doctors? 76%. What percentage of you trust your politicians? 6%.
That's 3 minutes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Gary Arnold. Good evening.
Good evening, Chairman, board members. As you all know, we live in an area that's referred to as Panetistan. Leon Panetta gave both military and policy information to the communist Red Chinese spy, in which our community foundation has a social justice fund named after him. In fact, they are the ones that appointed Margaret Lopez that created all the policies concerning the COVID. She was funded by a secret donor. There's not one representative in the Board of Supervisors that will name that secret donor, or where this lady had the authority to knock down and kill 1/3 of our local businesses. None whatsoever. Also, I think at the beginning, your camera is outrageous. You're minimizing your constituents by having them show a shoulder. Turn it around, let the public speak to the public, damn it. The National Education Association has been calling and controlling these boards of supervisors, and everybody can see in the newspapers when the slates go out to vote for the Board of Trustees, that the Board of Trustees is all stamped on, and we find Jimmy Panetta and Leon Panetta, who have been literally giving policy and military information to the Red Chinese. It's absolutely outrageous. All of the newspapers in this area have been bought out by Bill Gates and a cabal, from the Mercury to the Sentinel to the Herald to the San Jose Tribune. It's outrageous. And the National Education Association, named after John Dewey, praised the Soviet Union. They advocate world government. John P. Holdren, the right-hand man for Obama, calls for slipping in capsules so girls need permission in order to have children. This COVID is not a vaccine in any way, shape, or form. You've been lied to, especially by secret donors in this area, by people that endorse you. It is outrageous. The mask, if you look up at Stanford, they say they're terrible. They don't work on their blind studies. It's not even healthy for surgeons to use a mask. They're better off sneezing in an open thing because it cuts 12% of their oxygen and adds 8% of the carbon dioxide, which makes them less efficient. These are nothing more than diapers. They attract every virus there ever could be. You feed it with your mouth and your warmth and your moisture.
You have 30
It's
seconds.
outrageous.
You have 30 seconds.
Okay, anyway, the education, you'll see in the documents that I gave you. This is what's being enforced. This is no more than the Communist Cultural Revolution of Mao's China. It is exactly the same. It's the same death that went to Cambodia, to Eastern Europe, to the Soviet Union. And get off your goddamn asses
Sir,
and take care of this. And I'm sorry,
No, no,
ass
no,
I hear
no.
on radio.
Sir,
You can
sir, you will
settle
bring it
down.
down or you will be escorted out by law enforcement. You're
Well,
allowed-
you can go ahead
you're
and
allowed to
escort,
express your
because
opinion.
why? Tell me
You're
why.
not- You're not
Tell
gonna
me
use
why,
foul
Scott.
language.
Okay,
You're not gonna
30
use
minutes.
foul language. No, that's 3 minutes. That's 3 minutes.
That's 3
No,
minutes.
I'm asking you why.
No, because of your foul language. You've had your chance to
The
express your
foul
opinion.
language
Okay,
is to
Stu,
get
tell,
off
3 minutes,
your
you're done.
ass.
You're
Your
done.
3 minutes is done.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
so get off your ass.
Sir,
thank you.
It's not okay for you. Yet you have children here that are showing their private parts to each other. That's outrageous. You're sick.
Okay.
You call that education?
Any other public comments?
Yeah, do we have any,
Any on email?
let's see. we don't have
refreshing. Nothing on
anything
email. Yeah, nothing on email.
Okay, all right, so with that, then what's gonna happen is that, unless we get any emails, why I say this, we're not gonna take any more, public comments not on the agenda via email. Only comments, pertaining to, an agenda item. All right, standing reports.
I,
Start off with Michelle. Good night.
Good night.
I'll start. So the last few weeks, I've had the opportunity to attend a couple of workshops, one on the principles of law and business and records retention. You know, every workshop that you take, especially through one of our organizations like AXA or CASBO or CSBA, they're very worthwhile. But I do have to say the records retention one was interesting with the start of it, where it was by Lozano Smith, and the lawyer that started said that in the last 40 years, the records retention law has not been updated. And they don't have an update. And so we still are under the same principles that we were under 40 years ago. So a lot of the items are still considered to be microfiched and hard copied, and emails and things of the digital nature still have not caught up in law with where we are today. So I found the workshop interesting, and hopefully next year they may be able to update that. I met with our auditors regarding the close of our 2021 audit, which everything is going really well. We talked about a few different things, some new changes in some GASB laws and some different provisions now under ASB that we've incorporated back into the district. And we will be starting our spring audit as early as possible this year. I spoke with the auditors and asked that we could be accommodated because of the transition to Infinite Campus and the new provisions under the short-term independent study. I want to make sure that the district is in compliance completely with our auditors. And so we're in touch with them and they give us great feedback, but it always feels good to have them on campus and take a look at our stuff to make sure there's nothing we can improve on. I had the opportunity to meet with FOSS, that's our front office staff. So I enjoy those meetings a lot. It's the front office staff at our school sites, and it incorporates our district office support staff. And our principals now have been invited to join, and we've had some of our principals come in, so getting different perspectives from the school site, from the district office perspective, and from a principal's perspective has been great. We kind of talk through different things, our attendance system, our business system, our HR, what's going on there. So it's been great. And one of the things, we had safety committee meeting a few weeks back, and one of the items we did discuss was safety buckets in the classrooms. And we had, the COE had donated them many years ago, and there's still some of the sites do something. So we're talking about, with some money that was donated to the district, upgrading for a more uniformed set of safety buckets, as you would call them, with some enhancements from the school sites with different provisions that they want to put in there in each of the classrooms. So this year, a lot of the work that I'd like to focus on within our realm and business is upgrading ergonomics and safety features throughout the district, because we've done a lot of external work. So some internal work would be nice right now. So that is my update for the board. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? So did any of our new buildings spring a leak?
No, nothing. Yes, no, I had to think about that to make sure. Nothing in Turtle Spring a leak. We had a few awning situations that were discovered, and I will say we did have some of our existing buildings that did spring leaks and through roof issues that we're aware of. But I'm happy to report that over the next year, with our work with Climate Tech, 99% of those issues should hopefully be addressed by the end of the school year. So that'll be great. But yes,
Thank you.
yes.
All right, well, I think Michelle and I had some crossover items, so I won't duplicate any of those. But one of the things that we've been continuing to work on through the course of this year is our relationship with Infinite Campus and the rollout of our new student information system. Most recently, we've had our attention on our report cards. Our report cards are always a big topic of conversation, even more so when it rolls from an old system to a new one. We've also been really focused on bringing over longitudinal data into our student information system, so our staff have more information about the students that are in their classes. And then we've also been focusing on identification tech. So if a student has a health need or has a specialized service, those are available and readily seen by their teacher. We have reconvened our district ed tech lead team. It's a great team. We talk about what's going well, what's not going as well, and then we do a newsletter. So Colin, who works in our ed tech department, is the writer of our newsletter, and he's wonderful. We're going to have some new additions to the newsletter, and if the board would like to see that newsletter, I'm happy to share it with you. But it is filled with like what's coming next, and it also will include a section about like what's happening in classrooms. So what kind of ed tech use is happening. I was also able to work as the principal at Santa Cruz Gardens last Friday. That was the best Friday I've had in a long time. The kids were great. The staff was great. There was music happening. There was kids socializing beautifully, teachers teaching. It was just a phenomenal day for me. I was also able to attend the S5C steering committee, and that's a committee that I really enjoy participating in, because we talk about college and career readiness. We talk about, college visits for our 7th graders. And this time we were talking about some school counseling topics, which I love when we have school counselors to talk about school counseling topics. So that was really great. Also, Michelle and I have been attending the Access Superintendent's Academy together, which has been great. We spent last Friday and Saturday with our AXA peers, and one of the focus areas was ethical and reflective practicing. And there were some really great speakers and some great resources to read. So I really enjoyed that. I think we both enjoyed that together. Also, we've been really trying to work on understanding this new TK rollout. So we've been doing a lot of reading, a lot of listening and looking about how to do that in our district successfully. Bringing kids to school earlier, I'm always a fan of. And so having this conversation is a great conversation. Just doing it the right way is important. And then I think lastly, because there's so many other things going on, our Ed Services Monthly SMORE page has been republished for the month, and we've posted more relevant resources for teachers and other staff, including professional development. We had a really great new addition to our SMORE page this month, and it was on Indigenous people and all of the resources related to that. And if you haven't been on Google Arts, Google Arts is fantastic, and I have posted on that lessons that are associated with Google Arts and kind of a look at authors and artists from 1920 until now of all colors and of, all interests. So that's, if you have a chance to take a look at it, it's really fantastic. And everything else I'll reserve for later tonight.
Thank you. Scott?
Just a few quick notes about the collaboration with SEA. We were able to, they asked for some extended deadlines around certificated evaluation that were very reasonable in nature. And so we're able to come to a memorandum of understanding for that. I really appreciate the collaboration with them on that. Not this past Monday, but the previous Monday, I was able to attend their monthly meeting after their regular membership meeting. And we had a good conversation on staffing, dual language immersion, and a few other important topics. Again, just really appreciate the regular and consistent communication with them. It was mentioned about expanded TK. I'm going to form a expanded transitional kindergarten task force soon with different representative stakeholders to make sure that we get all perspectives as we learn more about this great opportunity, as Jessica had said, and implement it beginning next year. On the COVID front, we continue to have layers of mitigation. We're up to nearly 10,000 tests administered to nearly 1,400 individual students and staff in the district. We have begun starting last week and then continuing today on school located clinics for our 5 to 11-year-old group. We've administered through Inspired Diagnostics 400 students vaccines with that, and there's another 200 registered. I just have to give a big shout out to the principals and all their office staff. This is a new endeavor, and it's an important endeavor, and especially the first two out. Mr. Broadhurst can attest to this. It was the staff from Inspired, and they're great, so this is no discredit, but they were running a little late, and so when you have appointments and everything and a first time out, little apprehension with that. I have to say all the staff were so patient, all the parents were patient, all the kids were patient. And I just so appreciate the positive. The overriding thing was, hey, we're just glad to have access to this, and that is being provided at school. Of course, some are receiving it at the Cabrillo site. So big credit to the county office and to Inspired Diagnostics for their support with that as we continue to add different layers of mitigation. The 50th New Brighton Turkey Trot is this Friday. How cool is that? And talk about a shout out. Big shout out goes to the PE team over there. This is if you ever drive by, you'll probably see that this is not something they throw together the night before. This is a lot of training for the students, training in terms of endurance and training about where to go. And just it's they do an amazing job over there with that. So that's all for me.
What number year is this?
50th.
The 50th. Wow.
Golden anniversary.
Yeah, are you gonna run it?
No. I volunteered.
Yeah.
I man a station.
We wave, as they run by.
Gotta set up a band.
Right, there you go.
There you go. All right, so do we have anybody virtually from CSCA or SCA?
I have virtual statements, you could call it, from SEA.
Okay.
Let me get to that.
Nobody from CSCA?
Not that I'm aware of, no. So President Gordon Barrett of SEA, I will read verbatim. Unfortunately, our SEA representative for tonight's meeting was unable to make it, had to cancel. Here's our SEA statement for tonight. SEA met for our general meeting on November 8th. Among other items, we just discussed healthcare redistribution, a proposed MOU regarding extension of the evaluation calendar, concerns of Soquel elementary staff about the plan to implement dual language immersion at that school. For the second part of our meeting, Scott graciously, I didn't add that, Scott graciously joined us as he does every month. We discussed the dual language immersion program and plans to gather input and seek collaboration with Soquel elementary staff. We also discussed the idea of bringing on a COVID coordinator and asked a question about the number of non-credentialed teachers in the staff. Following that meeting, SEA and SUESD were able to agree to an MOU, which creates a one-time extension to the certificated evaluation timeline due to a late start on the evaluation process this year. We are grateful for the collaboration on this MOU and for the district's reasonableness in agreeing to extend the timeline. Thanks and apologies, I couldn't make it there tonight, Gordon.
Thank you. Okay, items from trustees. Anybody want to jump in?
I'll start.
Oh, there we
So
go.
I want to thank Scott and the staff for that great event that we had at our last meeting. I was surprised. It was wonderful. And as I said,
It was all her stuff.
and as I mentioned to Scott, these students did this in parallel with what they were doing, what their regular school is. And so it's an achievement that I think if we underestimate just the work and effort that had to go into it. So thank you for that. And the only other thing is I'm going to a CSBA meeting in a couple of weeks. And so let me know if you have an axe to grind and I will do it.
There we go. All right.
Can I go down the row? Okay, totally echoing the appreciation for the reclassification ceremony, the work staff did to put that on, and also just the amazing work done by our students, considering so much of it was done virtually over the last year and a half. So it was extra meaningful, really, really special ceremony, and so grateful to have that in person. It's always Ted's thing to comment on the art, but like, I'll leave that to him, but like, I'm just gonna say, yay. And I did get to see the Inspire testing and vaccine administration at Cabrillo, and really appreciated the professionalism. It was wonderful to see the way students were treated, and also happened to run into staff members who were getting boosters, and it was a very efficient and well-run program that I got to observe and experience. And then again, just sharing gratitude for the County Office of Education for making the partnership with Inspire and giving us this extra opportunity for, as you say, Scott, the other layer of education.
Thank you. Okay, well, thank you for the artwork. And this is second grade.
Yeah.
Main Street.
Main Street, okay.
But this, right, so with this is with teacher Susie Blackburn, who then
Yep.
is now
Our
sharing her
integrated.
gifts with all of her. Yay! Good.
That's awesome. And that's all I have to report out on. And then presentations. Okay, we're gonna start off with 7A, which is a presentation from Principal Broadhurst, the New Brighton Middle School. Scott.
Yeah, let's just turn it over to Ms. Brothers to hear all the cool stuff happening with our Vikings. I'm glad to see that the focus of this is on equity amongst all the other great things happening. So welcome aboard, Chris.
Before I begin, I do want to just chime in on something I heard because I think you'll enjoy it. I wasn't able to be at the last board meeting when the reclassification ceremony happened, but I was told to, well, actually one of the sixth graders came up to me the next day because he was so proud of the certificate and was sharing it. Somehow the frame broke around it, and we got it fixed because we had some spare ones, and he was just so proud to have been part of that ceremony. I've never heard of a student talk to me or engaged me that way before about the reclassification ceremony. And I could see from some of the props, the photo booth, it's like a notch above what it normally is. So the award was very much appreciated by us.
Well, I'm not gonna take any credit. Our staff, I mean, I love them and I love working with them, but they really did a great job.
Okay, well, I'm here to present tonight, and I thought I would talk about the new block schedule and also add in some grading for equity work that we've been doing at New Brighton Middle School this year. And so, up on the screen over there, you can see the current MBMS block schedule. It began in distance learning when we all the distance learning we were looking at what other schools were doing and how we could best meet the needs of our students being at home, more into the block schedule, and through leadership meetings that happened in distance learning into hybrid learning, it became apparent that we wanted to switch to a block schedule instead of the typical first period through seventh period schedule Monday through Friday that we had for all the years that I've been in middle school. And so we went to this block schedule to start the school year. It was a little different than this one that actually seeing here right now. In the beginning, we had all the students having lunch at the same time, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and that was different from last year. And then we had the flex periods at the end of the day. But there were some issues with having all the students at lunch at the same time. One is now that everybody's getting access to food without having to pay for it, many more meals are being served. And it was difficult to serve all the students who wanted food without their accessing the food, to serve them in the time allotted. And also, it proved difficult to give the kind of coverage that we want to give to our students during break, but also during lunch. So we actually made some changes which are reflected in this, which made the changes at the end of the first quarter. And that is that now the flex has been moved to before lunch for the 7th and 8th graders, and it's after lunch for the 6th graders. So it's offset now. So the flex is offset. That also helps us to offset the lunches. And now that we've offset the lunches, there's less meals per lunch serving because we have 2 lunch servings, so students aren't waiting as long in line. And there's less areas to supervise, which means you can supervise more effectively and less students to supervise. It has lengthened my amount of supervision, but I don't have a problem with that. I like being outside and helping the students engage and enjoy their lunchtime. The 6th graders, one of the best things to see, because before we split the lunches, the 6th graders were all in the area between the 1s wing and the 10s wing and the field. But now they have access to the full campus, and so it's great to watch our 6th graders playing table tennis, playing Connect 4, playing beanbag toss, playing Foursquare, various games on the Foursquare, playing basketball. I feel like we've really enhanced the lunchtime experience for our 6th graders and for our 7th and 8th, because there's less people out there. So this is our block schedule as it currently stands, and some of the teacher input regarding the block schedule. I put a few notes up there. Teachers are feeling like they have more time to go in depth with the subjects that they're covering. They're feeling less rushed through the period. It is allowing more time to collaborate and have discussions amongst the students, because there's that feeling of not being rushed. They're seeing less students daily, which means they can get more time to the students they are seeing, which allows for stronger connections. And for things like Socratic seminars, which involve a lot of discussion and listening and building on other student stores, so things like labs or graphing activities in math classes, it allows teachers to have those kinds of classes where they can have time to do the things they need to do, these discussions, and student talk. And so I know that there are probably some downsides to the block schedule. And one of the goals is to survey our staff and students and parents to get their input regarding how they're feeling about the block schedule. Block schedule allows us to have, I should say, when we put block schedule together, we added a 0 period. And the 0 period happens before first period or second period, if it's a Tuesday or Thursday. And so historically, we've had English language learner students have to have an ELD class. They have to have designated ELD. We have students with an IEP who need to have a learning center so they can work on their goals for their IEP. Traditionally, Learning Center and the ELD class were in lieu of an elective class, which is really unfair and not equitable for many students for many years. And it's been a sort of thing that we need to do something about this. So this year, we've been able to offer a 0 period PE, also offering banjo at 0 period time. And this is allowing students who want to come to 0 PE get their PE class done early in the morning. Then have PE during the regular day. That opens up a chance for those students to have an elective class, which is, I'm sure you'll agree, it's an equitable scenario. We currently have 47 students in those classes who have access to elective that didn't have access before. And I got some student input because I wanted to hear what students had to say about it. One student said, I've learned about the elements of art, I've learned how to cut with a saw, I've learned how to use hand tools, I've learned how to use hand plane, I'm learning about power tool safety, and enjoying my art class. One student told me 0 period PE is worth it. I've missed 2 years of having elective, and now I'm enjoying an elective class, which is her art class. And so I think we will continue to develop it because not all our EL students, not all our students with an IEP are accessing 0 period. They all have been offered, but for various reasons, some aren't accessing it. So we've got work to do to make it even more equitable. But we have made a good start compared to where we were last year, and it feels good to hear things like I missed out on elective for 2 years, and now I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying my art class. I'm enjoying learning how to use power tools. And so I think that is an equity win for our students. And we'll continue to look at ways of making it more equitable. The flex period is something that we added new to our schedule this year. And basically the idea for the flex period is developing organically, but we wanted it to be a period to support student work, which can come in many shapes and forms. So we wanted to make sure that flex period wasn't just a time where it would be wasted. It's part of the instructional day. And so we wanted it to be a place where students would get more support. And the way that's currently happening is teachers are letting students come back to a core teacher. For example, I might be in Ted's humanities class or language arts and social studies. But Carol might be my flex teacher. So Ted can request that I come back to his flex period to work on something that I may be struggling with. Or I could also, as the student, say to Carolyn, if I teach my flex teacher, I need to go to Mr. Donnelly's class because I'm working on something in language arts. So it can be a student request, or it can be a teacher request, and we have a pass that they fill out. Because we were finding that students figured out, well, if I say I need to go back to Mr. Donnelly's class, and some of my friends saying that too, it's almost like it was like, wait, I think there's a mini social club going on here. So we had to, as it organically grows, we have to make some changes to make sure that it's being used effectively. And so it's allowing to, a stronger connection that students can go back during that flex period. If a student needs extra this time to do it, and the flex period happens in the day, students can redo work that they've turned in, and I'm trying to get it right. They can retake tests. They can redo assignments all in the flex period. And one of the other things that about this is they're saying that another sort of take on being equitable. Not every student has a quiet environment at home to work on the things that they need to work on. That in that classroom, they feel like they provide a quality environment where students can work effectively and not be distracted. And I feel well, that's it. I'm glad that they mentioned that, because it wasn't something I was thinking about, but not everybody has a quiet environment at home where they can work out. And the flex period is also allowing for that. Some of the other uses of flex is I can, as a flex teacher, I can meet with students, I can look at their grades, I can do grade checks, I can do minor checks. I can look at their assignments and say, I'm missing the assignments. On making sure that assignments that are missing can get done. And so the flex has been, in my opinion, a good addition. It continues to refine it. We'll continue to refine it. And again, through some input from teachers and students and families, we'll continue to refine it as it goes through this year into next year. With regard to grading equity, it didn't really relate to the flex period, but I think it's important about it because equity is one of the focuses of our district at this point in time. Last June, myself and 5 other teachers attended the Office of Education equity workshop. It's a 3-day workshop. And out of that workshop, we had 3 teachers, Fred Sapacosta, Johan Rago, and Mike Naronde. They wanted to form an action research team around grading for equity. And so they are the ART team at our school, and they're working on some things that some of our other staff are working on also, but the goal is to have them work through some of the initiatives and spread them out to our other staff. Now, currently, 50% for missing assignments. Let me explain that. Typically, you get a 0 for missing assignment, which mathematically doesn't make sense because it tanks your grade and you've got to go 60 points to get that to a D if you're getting 0. And I'll give you an example where I was looking at students grades last year. There were 11 assignments. Students had done 8 of the assignments and missing 3. And his grade was an F. If you looked at the 8 assignments that he turned in, student's grade was a B. So when you start thinking about what is grading all about, what's grading supposed to represent, that student's work that the student is producing is of a B level in terms of mastery of the subject matter. But 0s for missing assignments really tank a grade and skew it to the point that it's almost impossible to recover. Whereas if you're given 50% for missing assignment, mathematically it's the same as going from a, if you need to go from a D to a C, the most you need to go is 10 percentage points. Same thing if you're given a 50% for a missing assignment, it's still an F, but it's just mathematically more in line with the rest of the grading scale. Now, eventually, to standards-based grading, but that's a whole other presentation in itself and a whole other world, because current 100-point grading scale goes back hundreds of years, and it's not impossible to change, but it's going to take some work, and that's why the county is working on that right now. Part of that group, and our action research team is part of that group too. So it's a county-wide movement. You're probably aware of. So we are implementing 50% for missing assignments. Grading categories are standards-based. Instead of being, for example, we might have homework, classwork, tests. Grading categories are going to be more along the lines of expository writing, argumentative writing, reading informational text, reading literature, and more aligned to the standards. with regards to retake policies, students are allowed to retake assignments and resubmit for the best work. But for an improved grade, I should say. And, late work is not being punished in terms of, okay, you've got a writing assignment, it's automatically going to be marked down a grade because it's shown in late. Now, the writing assignment will be graded for the writing, the level of mastery of the writing. And maybe if it continues, if the student continues to earn more related, it will be reflected in more of a soft skill in terms of their participation, but not affecting the mastery of the standard that they're working on. And so that's my presentation on our block schedule and some of our wage and equity highlights. And always open for any questions.
Thank you. Having deja vu for like 2 years ago, the last time you came in here and did a presentation. It's been about 2 years. I think it has.
Did we not do one last year?
In person, no.
Yeah.
The years kind of fly by.
Right. Appreciate your presence is what I'm saying.
Likewise, it's good to be, I mean, it's great to be in person.
It is.
And I would invite you to come on to the Eagle campus
I would
and
like
see the students in person in the classroom, because right now, the only thing that seems different is students are wearing masks. So I go into the classrooms, I'm looking at what's happening and saying, this is what it should be. You can't replicate the classroom through distance learning. And I know that we always did the best that we could during distance learning. Our teachers worked their tails off. And, students were working, but it's just something magical about being in the room and listening to students talk to each other, build on each other's thoughts, work together and collaborate. Yeah, please, your message open for business. Come anytime you want to.
I'm being, oh, sorry. Oh, I was just gonna say, I'll be really interested to hear next year or whenever we see you about next, what the student and staff report back at the end of the year on the block schedule, because having had high schoolers who then, went on to high school and experienced block school schedule, for me, kids who went to 2 different high schools in the area, but both of them have their own take on the block schedule. It really does provide, this opportunity for really rich experiences in the classroom and learning. So I'm hopeful that that's what our students and staff will report back.
Yeah. And we're not going to wait till the end of the year.
Oh,
We should probably do one at the end of this first semester.
Nice.
I never realized that the students at ELL or IEP students missed out on electives. in the
It's
past.
unfortunate. I feel now,
Yeah.
I mean, I feel somewhat guilty that we allowed that to happen for so long. And didn't find a way sooner.
Yeah.
Take care of the issue.
And then how they feel about being part of the elective too, and not being had to go somewhere else for their studies. So, I mean, for the student itself, and that's just awesome. I saw a 0 period band, so I thought that was a band name or something. A little garage band going 0 period.
The band students, it's understood that you're in band for a year. Because
Yeah.
our electives are a semester, but the band is a year-long commitment. And so, because the band teacher is also available during the 0 period time, that means that I could be in band but still get a regular elective. I mean, band is a regular elective, but not everybody's in band because not everybody's musically inclined or wants to play.
I did have a question. You mentioned that not all the students that are eligible for the 0 period are taking advantage of it. Do you have a approximate percentage of what students are taking advantage of it?
With regards to EL students, it's around 50% of the students who are taking zero PE with students with an IEP, it's less than 50%. But again, I would like to say there are 47 students right now who were not able to access electives last year, now accessing electives. And we still have some more to do to figure out how many of those people who don't want to come to zero PE, because everybody was offered zero PE, but not all for various reasons could make it. I mean, it might be that it's also a possibility that we might have a busing system. I know that costs us money. But, maybe transportation was a barrier to some students, but we have to dig a little deep to finances so that, yeah, we would like all our students to
I have a question. So you mentioned SEL. So, this is a non-professional appraisal of where the student body is socially and emotionally, coming back from all of this. What do you think?
I think that being away from the influence of school and away from the influence of the teachers has had a detrimental effect on student learning and behavior. I feel like we're pulling our students back to where they were pre-COVID. I feel like that in terms of behaviors that I'm seeing. Classroom looks a lot like it did pre-COVID times, but outside, when the students can have their mask off and there's a little more freedom, it seems like there's a little bit more, the noise level seems a little higher. There seems like a bit more garbage on the ground. It seems like a little bit more pushing and shoving and horseplay. And I was looking at some students of the day and thinking, they may be doing this because they didn't get to do it during the last 18 months. And typically I see like horseplay, pushing, shoving can be with 7th graders. And I was watching some 8th graders and I'm thinking, I wonder if it's because they didn't get to do it with 7th graders. So, and then it's sort of a somewhat normal phase they have to go through in terms of how do I communicate with this person? No, maybe I'll jump on their back to get their attention. They didn't, as much as we tell students that horseplay is not allowed, it still happens. And part of me is thinking they didn't get to do it during those 7th grade years, so now it's happening in the 6th grade year. But I feel like my feelings are echoed by other educators in other districts that I've spoken to. And I feel like our students are slowly moving back to where we were pre-COVID time in terms of those behaviors outside the classroom. I asked a student was running down the hall with a glue stick. I said, I didn't know it was a glue stick. His dad was running back. I asked him to come over and I told him, walk in the hallway, do that. I said, could you pass me the glue sticks? And I was kind of looking at other students. And he tossed it to me and hit me right in the hand. Like, oh, wow, that wouldn't have happened pre-COVID. At least I didn't think so. In my mind, I was thinking, that's sort of an example of, have you forgotten, or maybe you haven't practiced this enough. So it didn't hurt, but it kind of startled me when he just tossed it.
So is an acclimation process going on?
I would, yeah, definitely say we're acclimating in back to where we were, but it's going to take some time.
Right.
That's what the educators I talked to are saying as well. I'm guessing when you go to the CD,
CSBA.
Yes.
CSBA, you might hear similar things.
Oh, I'm hearing that. But I'm hearing the other side too, and that there are students who are, it's taking effort to draw them back out.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like we're slowly turning the tide to get back to where we were. But that to me is a good sign because slowly seeing keep on that trajectory, we'll get back to where we were. not gonna happen overnight.
Thank you.
One more question. For the social emotional programs, I know that before the block schedule, there was homeroom. And
Yes.
that's when that happened.
Yes.
Does that happen now during flags or is it
That's
incorporated?
another use that we want to get into Flex is to get our SEL reached out community circles going on back on the front burner. Because prior to COVID, we spent quite a bit of time going through SEL practices and community circles, and Flex can also be used for that too. One of the other things that we're using Flex for currently, one of the Flex periods is to have students engage in their iReady math pathway. The iReady program is new to our district this year, and we want to make sure our students are engaged in their pathway, because every pathway is slightly different, depending on how math diagnostic. So that's one of the things that we would like to do for also. But also it would be for SEL. We need to, here at the district site, we're going to work on PBIS reading, which is get that on the front burner again, because having been in distance learning for 18 months, some of the practices that we're using haven't been used, and so we need to get even the veteran teachers are thinking, oh yeah, we used to do it like this. And we have quite an amount of new stuff, so. Yeah, it's our SEL practice.
With that, anything from the audience out there, please line up.
I can just tell you as a shop owner, their part, Capitol Senior Highs are the same. We're overrun, they're on the roofs. And they're in the mountain.
Oh, wow.
In the parking lot. So
I've noticed students being a bit more confrontational, isn't the correct word, but more bold in the way they interact with the adults. In ways that they didn't do pre-COVID. And I think, if they've been out of the realm of influence of teachers, and some and they're really great role models, reminding them of expected behaviors on a daily basis. You're hearing it from high up, I think it's the same up and down the country, it's not really wide.
Although our pledge leader was a wonderful
So,
student.
that's what you want, I get to see every day. 99% of our students make the right decisions all the time. And there's a small percentage who make wrong choices that we hope they learn from. Doesn't make them bad people, they make wrong choices like we all did. But yeah, Marcella, what a perfect representative of you by the student body. So yeah, thank you for bringing it back to the students there.
And there's nothing on email.
Okay, very good. All right.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you. All right, let's move on to 7B, and Jessica will lead us in a discussion regarding updates on the LCAP.
Okay, I'm sorry, I really, really hate to do this because I do
Recess?
not want to slow things down, but if you
George.
just have 5 minutes. I'd go.
Yeah, please, yeah.
Thank you.
George.
We will recess for 5 minutes.
No,
And,
it's-
or, that's fine.
Sound like the director, that's a 5.
There you go.
Recess. Okay, back from recess and back to 7B. Jessica.
All right, well, thank you, and I'm happy to give my regular LCAP bite. Tonight's LCAP bite relates to our LCAP goal with regard to culturally responsive education. And as the board knows, our staff has been working with EL Rise. And I know I've mentioned EL Rise a few times with this group, but I haven't ever told you like who they are and what it means. So I'm going to do that a little bit tonight. EL Rise is actually a group that works with Californians together. And it's a group that really attempts to elevate the education for English learners and the relationship that we have with the English learner families. So EL Rise stands for English Learner Roadmap Implementation for Systemic Excellence. And that really is what they're attempting to do. So all the work, I know it's a lot, but it really is, it really defines the work that we are attempting to do with them and that they're attempting to do with educators and families in our state. As the board knows, our elementary teachers, we've had a huge group that has been in the elementary education series of the EL Rise. And just today, we started the EL Rise training design specifically for the English Learner Master Plan training. So all of our ELD specialists and I, along with our TOSA, Barbara Hubner, attended the first in the training series. Our next training will be on January 18th, but we're actually going to be working together 2 times before that to do some kind of pre-planning and preparatory work and some pre-reading. What our goal is to, by the end of this year, have an EL master plan that has been co-written and co-collaborated on with some families and some other interest groups. And really, the goal of the plan is to create something that's really palatable for anyone who wants to read it. To say, if you are an English learner coming into our district, this is what you can expect to see, and these are the things that we're going to offer you on your road to reclassification and beyond. So really, we're saying out loud, we know you're here, we're glad you're here. These are all of the things that we are going to do with you and for you. In terms of your instruction, the curriculum that's associated, how we're going to partner with your families, and all of the things that are going to lead you to a successful redesignation. And the ceremony that we had at our last meeting is not the last step. The last step of a good EL master plan is what work we do after the time that you're reclassified. Are we ensuring that you're still feeling successful? Are we ensuring that you still feel supported and all those things? So I'm just really happy to say that the EL road map is going to be kind of the foundation for our EL master plan. And our district has never had an EL master plan before. So this will be our first pioneer trip in this work. But we have the right people engaging in the conversation. Our EL Parent Leadership Council is also actively involved in this work with us. And so I just want to say to the board, the LCAP is designed for many reasons. One is for accountability, but also to actually do the work, the meaningful work that stand behind those. And I think this is evidence of that. Any questions?
Okay. Any questions on the update?
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Do you see the LCAP with the state and stuff as still kind of being a moving target, or are they pretty there yet?
I don't know that they're there yet. I mean, I would love to say that. We do have some nuances to the LCAP. We're going to be doing a different update that we typically don't do mid-year this year. So I do think that there will be some shifts, but I do love the idea of the document. And I do love the work that we put into it. And I do think it shares our voice, no matter
Right.
where it is landing at the state level. But yeah.
Okay.
I guess we can move on.
Nothing on email.
Oh, that's right, yeah. Okay.
Nobody wants to talk about
Okay, so we
I'm
have
sorry.
7C, which is report on interdistrict transfers. Scott.
So we'll talk about transfers in the district. Of course, inter-district transfers are transfers between two different districts, and intros are between two schools within our own district. We'll start with their inter-district transfers. And so just some thoughts about that process in general. The families transfer between districts. Sometimes it's just necessary. It might be a work situation. Might be that a sibling has already attended a school. The sibling allowance is almost always granted. So it's not always, necessarily a good or bad reflection on a particular school. Just a process as families find the right landing spot for their children. That being said, you always want a net gain, meaning more students in than out for so many reasons. We want students in our community to attend our community schools. And of course, there's also a fiscal element to it. Think about ADA. For the last several years before last year, we've been on a pretty good streak in that department. Last year was a concerning anomaly. Yes, there was COVID, and maybe some of it could be accounted for with that, but still, we were very concerned. And so we wanted to, as we always do, hone in on some of the reasons that a student may transfer out that we may be able to impact. I mentioned a couple like siblings that necessarily we can't really impact, but some that maybe we can impact are childcare and specialized programs, which are two of the reasons that parents often frequently mark for requesting a transfer. And so this is more, you could say, controllable, or at least we can address as a district. Of course, we had the child care task force, and out of that grew support from the city of Capitola, school time program, in addition to our long-standing partnership with CKC. And then when you think about unique and specialized programs, we have the Science and Gardening Emphasis Program, SAGE, the Santa Cruz Gardens, based learning model at Opal Cliffs. These are just a couple of examples of ensuring that we are offering those kind of programs that sometimes our students and families seek elsewhere. So I won't say that it's all a one-to-one correlation. There is, it's not an exact science. But this year we are back on the right track. So we processed 167 transfers out of the district and 218 into the district for a positive net gain of 42 students.
Yeah.
Yay. I was waiting for it. Dramatic pause. Obviously, that's better for our community, our schools, as well as our bottom line. We'll keep working on all of those models to ensure that what is in our control, we are addressing to the best of our ability. Talk a little bit about the intra-district transfer. Of course, we're talking much fewer in number. And so you'll see the numbers in there. There's a pretty compact number. You don't see any real outliers or anything of that sort. I would like to say that Santa Cruz Gardens, our smallest school, had the most students being received on intra-district transfers, 12 students. And 6 of those were specifically noted by parents for the SAGE program. So 6 doesn't seem like a lot, but this is how you start to make inroads with those kind of attractive and unique programs. Overall, on both the inter and intra-district transfer process, I think our data is representative of the quality instructional program in all of our schools. Before we take your questions and comments, I would like to give a big shout out to my assistant, Linda, who handles all of those transfers. And it is not just a paper job, it is a human job. And it often entails her very patiently walking an anxious or worried parent through the process, what can and cannot happen, and the timelines, and the part that we control and the part that we don't control from our other districts. And she has become a master at that in these last few years. So thank you, Linda, for all your work. that, I'll take any questions.
Okay, any questions, comments on your?
A couple questions. So are there still students appearing?
Not as much as when we first came back from distance learning. Our overall enrollment has been pretty steady since the beginning of the school year. So we were hoping they would appear more.
Yeah, so, okay. So on the intra district, how do you go from Opal Cliffs to a regular, K-5 school?
I'll touch, oh yeah, no, go ahead. I
Oh,
was gonna
sorry.
touch on it and then open the door for you. Anytime, feel free.
It's part of the new law with regard to independent study. And what the new law basically says is if you're in a home-based learning program, independent study, the school district is obliged to allow you to return to the school that you came from within 5 days of your request.
Okay.
And there have been students who, for various reasons, have had parents who wanted them to wait till they were vaccinated or something else in order for them to feel confident returning to school. That's most of the case, but that's where you get that number.
Okay.
And I know I asked that question last year, but can you say a little bit more about the specialized education that the students are leaving our district for? I assume some are still because of the dual language immersion program that we haven't offered yet. What about some of the others?
Yeah, dual immersion. And then remember, a lot of those numbers are not new students to being transferred, right? Like once a student has transferred, say, I'll give an example. When another district has a program similar to what's been developed at Opal Cliffs, and they're already in that program, we don't then go back and say, now we have a program, now you have to come back. That would be disruptive, right? So I think it'll take a little time to have the traction where we have the similar kind of numbers, but we are making the inroads now at that beginning level with kindergarten.
I just have to say yay. What an incredible difference over the last few years, really since 2017, when you're looking at the numbers.
So I have a kind of a question. So if I read today that the state's looking at a pretty good year for next year. And so, but then we're having an enrollment thing. And so a good year in an enrollment thing, how do we end up?
Sounds like a budget presentation.
I don't expect
No,
an
a
answer
really
now.
good question. Yeah, we won't go in depth much tonight,
A
but
lot of moving parts.
and transfers play a big role in that. Of course, we're looking at declining enrollments and figuring out how the state may or may not support. Okay, I'll just say that for now. We'll definitely can address it at another time.
Thank you.
Yes.
Anything else? I'm just kind of I've been staring at the intra. And first when I read it, I kind of had it backwards as far as the receiving the, So now I grasp it, and it's just, it doesn't, I mean, doesn't seem all off balance, I should say. I mean, there's not a whole lot of, I see people leaving Main Street to go to Santa Cruz Gardens, and in the past, it's kind of sometimes the other way around. So that's good. I mean, they're like going up there. Is there a reason they're going from there up to Santa Cruz Gardens, or?
Well, I can say for 6 of them, it was for SAGE, which is a science and gardening emphasis, which I think, it doesn't happen overnight, but like I said, 6 may not be a lot, but that's how you start to kind of build the program slowly, where it has a reputation and a foothold. And you hope that in future years, there may be even more interest.
Well, because I was just thinking in the past that, it could have been really lopsided there, and it just doesn't seem all that lopsided right now. So, I'm sure there's always going to be a transfer of some part, but it just doesn't look all that incredibly lopsided to me.
I have a question. How does the PK thing gonna work out with this?
So that's a whole other presentation as well. Put that on the future agenda item. No, it's a great question. And as we mentioned in our report outs, expanded transitional kindergarten will play a part in this as well. Yep.
Questions, members of our audience?
Once you're coming in.
Yeah. Somewhat of a difference from a few years back, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Nothing on email.
Nothing on email. Check that. I got none of that.
I'm feeling neglected, Ted.
Or is that- Just say nothing on text just to keep the flow.
There you go.
Okay, well, thank you. And then with that, we're going to go into 7D, which is information about election of board members.
Excellent. So I believe that we have our friends with us tonight.
Oh.
So hello, Elise from Lozano Smith. And I think Mr. Dave Sturts will also be on with us from Cooperative Strategy Demographics. Hello, folks, and I will do a little setup. As you know, the California Voting Rights Act is hits the theme of the night, or the theme not just of tonight, but that we've been working on. It's an equity-driven legislation designed to ensure equity of voice throughout an entire school district or voting area. To put it simply, a process where a district moves from a general election to trustee area elections. And just kind of setting the stage for how we got to this point. Back in 2019, this board, or our board, considered starting this work and then consciously put a pause on it in order to be better informed via the 2020 census data. Once that data was available, as promised, our board dove back into this effort. After reaffirming the board's intent to re-engage with the process, we held 2 pre-map hearings in October. Since then, we've worked with our demographer, Dave Sturts from Cooperative Strategies, and he's been building out possible maps, what's referred to as scenarios. There are 4 of them. Those maps have been posted on our CBRA website, thanks to our tech team, as of last week for public viewing. After hearing a presentation on these maps tonight, we'll follow that with our first public hearing on the scenario maps tonight as well. The second one will be at our next board meeting on December 15th. In between, we're going to hold 2 virtual map sessions, informal, not connected to a board meeting. And those will be on December 1st and December 13th, for which I will communicate out. Before we hear from our demographer tonight, I'd like to invite our expert attorney providing legal counsel on this matter to say a few words. That's Elise Pacheco-Nichols. And Elise, we welcome here tonight.
Thank you. Good evening, Superintendent and the board and the community. I think you've summed it up greatly. The process is underway. As the superintendent mentioned, there were 2 hearings held in October where the demographer and staff were able to take in input from the board and the community about considerations and criteria that the board and community would like the demographer to consider as they create these draft maps for us. So the district timely posted on November 10th, both the proposed trustee maps as well as potential election sequencing schedules. These are just, again, as the superintendent mentioned, scenarios and options that the district will be considering. And there will be a second meeting where we will again go through this process of continuing to consider the different options based on the information provided to us by the board and the community. So with that, I'll turn it over to David, who's going to walk us through the maps, and we will be here if you have any questions.
Okay, good evening, Superintendent, members of the board, members of the community. Nice to be with you again. And as we get started in, what I'd like to do is first share my screen. Make sure that's going. Okay, looks like we're live there. First, go back and, to reiterate what we did here in the previous meeting and notes from October the 20th. wanting to look at cleaning up the map in two respects. One was showing the unincorporated area more contiguously than the original map did. And secondly, dealing with some of the call outs on street names in the south there in a cliff area in Capitola and cleaning that up. So those have been addressed. In addition, there was a comment that of the 7 criteria, which I'll review momentarily, and looking at the different scenarios for redrawing these boundaries. A board member commented that while one of our criteria is respecting incumbency, that not take the highest weight. And lastly, there was a request for a school district map to be overlaid. We did look into that. Apparently, there's not we didn't receive any the data official for that. We did receive a link to a realtor whose boundaries from 2016 seem to show your 3 elementary school boundaries fairly well, but so those have been referenced. I'm kind of looking at those, and I'll reference those loosely as we go through. But certainly, if we have a blessing on that map or further data on those boundaries, we can incorporate those more scientifically. So I'm going to go into, again, here we are in our timeline, as mentioned, what's happened to date, where we are today, first public hearing on these scenarios, meeting again on the 15th, third public meeting on the 19th of January, with the meetings interim for your community feedback as stated by Superintendent Turnbull, looking to finalize in February of 22. These are those 7 areas referenced earlier that we use as criteria when creating these different scenarios. Number 1, that the area shall contain nearly the equal number of inhabitants, certainly less than 10% to be within compliance. And the scenarios that you see, the 4 scenarios, range from 3.6 variance in scenario 1 to 6.1% variance in population in scenario 4. Where scenario 1 has the least variance, scenario 2 is a little bit more, scenario 3 a little bit more than that, scenario 4 has the greatest variance, but still 6%. Drawn, of course, to comply with Federal Road and Rights Act, compact and contiguous, looking to respect geography and logical boundaries such as roads and mountains and bodies of water. Excuse me. Respecting communities of interest as much as possible, as referenced before, looking for feedback from you all as to what we cannot see, as what those communities of interest might be in the census data, and that inform your feedback and your community's feedback on these scenarios. As mentioned, following man-made and natural boundaries, respecting incumbency if possible, and other local considerations, school boundaries, locations to school sites, etc. So this is, again, the base map here that we've been working with the total population and broken down ethnicities by percent of total population and adult population. Again, looking at subgroups, we look at our demographic team, we look at different subgroup populations to make sure that we're in compliance with Voting Rights Act and making these boundaries as equitable as possible. So what I'm going to do here momentarily is I'm going to go through each of the scenarios, a little bit about them. The rhythm here is a visual that kind of shows the scenario like we see right here. I'll explain the key in the bottom right that sort of gives you an understanding of comparing these scenarios to your present, and then where trustees live, and then a narrative explanation, and then a tabular breakdown of the math, the numbers, population breakdown. So scenario 1, as you see there in the bottom of the screen, in this particular scenario, trustee area 3 in this area is the pink, the darker pink. And in this case, no trustee presently lives there, so that would be vacant, with 2 trustees living in what this scenario outlines as trustee area 1. The sort of the naming convention here and the color convention tied to that is consistent throughout the different 4 scenarios, so you can visually track and scroll through the different scenarios and see how they change. But in this case, this does create one area where there is a vacancy and one area where there's 2 present trustees. That scenario, that situation only occurs in this first scenario and in the 4th scenario. In the other ones, it's 1-to-1. So in this particular scenario 1, this was drawn to primarily focus on making as small as possible that population variance while respecting the other 6 different criteria that we have to consider when creating these different boundaries. You know where your population densities lie, most of it south of Highway 1, and then slightly north in particular pockets. So in this case, it does leave that vacancy, and as mentioned just a moment ago, variance at 3.6%. This is your smallest population variance, and here you can see how that pans out in these proposed scenario trustee area boundaries. You can see the total population variance across the top. You can see that by gross number and by percentage by subgroup. Okay. In the second scenario, you can see how it shifts. I like to look at these and just toggle between this map and that one. You can see the shift there and how they're drawn. Much less population dense area, obviously, working more east-west in this scenario for trustee area 2. In this particular scenario, every existing trustee resides within a separate proposed trustee area boundary. The variance in population shifts from 3.6% to 4.4%. So just a little bit less than 1 percentage point variance increase there. Again, looking at all of the different the different same criteria as before, and what we're doing here is just looking at logically where we can start to draw different boundaries while still come up with the same that math consistent throughout the different scenarios. And this is the second one. Here, as you see, how it breaks down again by total population and by population subgroup percentage, all within compliance. I didn't mention this in the first, but just for way setting at the top of this is consistent throughout all of the different scenarios where we have our total population of just under 27,000, and given 5 trustee areas, your target number for population in each boundary is 5398. Scenario 3.
I'm so sorry. Can I ask a question?
Please go ahead.
What does CVAP stand for?
The total population,
right,
versus the subgroup population, and that. I'm sorry, I'm having a brain lapse at the moment. It's the subgroup. So you have your total population here, and then this is your adult population. Sorry.
Oh, like voting age? Is that?
Yeah. So
okay.
when we go back, that's all right.
It's citizen voting age population.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're off hours ago. So if we go back here, there's you see that how we go from the total population to the adult voting age population.
So same area. What are the asterisks for?
That's just the definition that's not showing up on the screen, quite honestly, given the. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a footnote that didn't note. So I'll make a note of that.
Well, the question came about because I'm looking at this, if the right terminology is kind of the subgroups, for example, the
Hispanic, Latino, white, et cetera.
Yeah.
And is the guideline that we need to be following, are we looking at that percentage in each trustee area of total population or the CVAP, the voting age population? Because it looks like there's
Yeah,
real difference between each scenario.
yeah. Elise, feel free to jump in if you think necessary, but we're looking at total population. That's our guide.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
And this provides you just a secondary lens with which to look at it. And when we're looking at subgroups and protected class, what we, to comply with Voting Rights Act, of course, and from an equity lens, we're looking at it this way to make sure that we are not unduly separating, packing, cracking. These are the terms used out there to artificially separate communities. So this is what we're looking at the top line from that, keeping close as we can to 5,400 total population, and within all population subgroups there, in particular protected class, to make sure that we're keeping those consistent as well insofar as possible.
Thank you.
Yeah, good questions. Okay. All right, very good. Where were we? Scenario 2. Yes, we were on scenario 2. All right. Scenario 3, again, and these are kind of starting to just invert some of the boundaries here. Everybody has, lives within one of these current within one of these proposed scenarios. Again, we're going for now a variance of 4.8. So we are very close, 3.6, 4.4, 4.8% variance. So when we're looking at these different scenarios, just really looking for your feedback in the total impact and what makes the most sense locally for you, given neighborhoods, population, and your local knowledge there, but far above and beyond just what the numbers show. And lastly, scenario 4 here. This is the one with the highest variance of 6%. And
Scenario 4 was included in the update.
Yeah. Creating a vacancy. In this particular scenario, there is a vacancy in trustee area 2 here on your eastern flank, and a doubling in trustee area 1 on the far west. And there you see variance at 6.1%, all the same other features in consideration. And our total population and voting age population breakdown. So look forward to your feedback and questions. We can toggle back to any particular map or look at any other considerations that you'd like us to review prior to bringing the next round of these maps with any updates.
At the beginning of the presentation, you mentioned a map from a realtor. What type of map was that?
I'll take that one. So
Okay.
right now we're working to obtain a file that will show them to be able to overlay the current school boundaries. Right, we go by a list of addresses, and so we're working on, that's an internal process that we need to get to them. So.
Yeah.
So, okay. Oh, I see. Okay.
And the closest thing we have is that realtor map, which is not a school sanctioned kind of thing. It's just
Be careful.
No, I do
Because
it.
I've been sold with the wrong school mention.
Yeah, I didn't mean to get off on a whole other thing. It's the best we have right now, but we are working on it.
Yeah.
All right.
I have a question about just the percentage of the Hispanic voters. Is there a percentage? So for example, in scenario 2 for trustee area 5, there's almost 25% in one area. Is that the number that we should try to approach for the best scenario, or what's the number that we're trying to get at to have the best chance of protecting that population? That's basically what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Well, again, I'll start and Elise follow as you see fit. It is a multi-pronged approach. Step one, we're looking at the total population, getting that variance small within the 10%, and then when we take that filter, then looking at making sure we're not unduly splitting populations. So these percentages right here represent what our team's effort, best effort was in looking at maintaining in creating wins as possible, anything close approaching majority minority areas. When that's not possible, it's making sure that we're not unduly diluting and making that population contiguous. So it's within the total population variance. How do we sort of maximize the percentage? 25%, 30%. There's not a magic marker there that we're looking for so much as making sure that within the population that does exist, as we split evenly by the 5 areas that we are keeping, we're trying to keep that subgroup a protected class together. Elise, is there a way that you would want to explain that further?
Yeah, I think that it's a good question. I think that it just draws me back to the kind of whole purpose of the California Voting Rights Act and how it came to be. And the idea was to create or require public entities to create a voting system in which there were designated trustee areas throughout the boundaries of the district or the city, whatever the public entity is. And so the idea was to be able to give each section of the district, in this case, kind of an equal voting opportunity through their trustee. So it's really about making sure that the various areas within the map are population balanced. That's really what the CVRA requires. Previously, under the at-large election system, you can have board members or trustees all living in one specific area, and they just found that was kind of diluting the votes of people who necessarily lived in other different parts. And so the whole purpose was to create these designated areas and make sure that each area has some basically population balance. So it's really looking at the total population and making sure that by splitting those up evenly, there's equal representation for each of the designated areas.
So are we trying to get the numbers similar across trustee areas, or are we trying to preserve if there's a map that has a higher percentage? For example, in scenario 2, trustee area 1 has almost 32%. Is that a good thing, or is it better to have it spread across the areas?
The 32% that you're referencing, is that in the Hispanic Latino line
Total
of the
population
of the
trustee area 1?
There's a bigger variance
Right, so,
in scenario 2, for example, than the other maps. And I just want to know if is that what we're striving for, or is that what we're not striving for?
so what we're striving for is kind of equal numbers of total population. The idea here, for example, with this particular scenario 2, is that population, in this case, is 32%, is represented in that trustee area 1. So the goal is, again, to have equal population among the different trustee areas based on the total population. So in this case, the fact that trustee area 1 happens to have a larger Hispanic Latino population it's not necessarily the goal, I would say, but it doesn't create a problem, because the total population balanced among the 5 different trustee areas is equal.
So you can have scenarios where there's a greater white population or greater Hispanic population in any given trustee area based on how it was broken up, as long as that trustee area has a designated representative. Does that help?
It does help, but I mean, it seems like all the scenarios fulfill that criteria of having about equal numbers, some a little better than others, but it seems like the difference is marginal. So given that all scenarios fulfill that criteria, then I'm wondering what the second criteria is that we should be looking at.
Yeah, so I think what you're saying is that if the first goal is to make sure that all of them are balanced among the 5 trustee areas, we've done that with these 4 scenarios. And so I think that that's correct. And so in terms of secondary considerations, that's kind of what this whole discussion is for the district to inform the demographer, myself and staff, as to what they want those secondary considerations to be. And so, if for whatever reason, the community or the district did not prefer to have a larger population of one group in a given trustee area, and they were more inclined to look at scenario 3, for example, or scenario 1. I think that's kind of part of this discussion. Under the law, the criteria is that there's balance between the 5 trustee areas under that 10% variance that we've discussed. And so under that, we have some wiggle room to do what's best for any given community, in this case, the district. And we can kind of line up, and would love to hear what those secondary considerations would be best for your community.
Yeah, I'm just not sure what the considerations are, and it would be nice to have guidance on what the most appropriate model is, I guess.
Yeah, and what I might suggest is coming back and looking at these criteria as a starting point, in that our job, in our demographic team, is we've taken care of this one. Equal number of inhabitants, nearly so. That's we've done that. Drawn in compliance with the Voting Rights Act, done that. Compact and contiguous as much as possible. We've done that. We want you to look at, but your area much better than we do, from sort of a top down. So from a local perspective, what boundaries just make sense given your natural and geographic features, given other considerations such as school boundaries, which we just talked about, and so, communities that don't pop up, neighborhoods that sort of are there, neighbors that function together that you just can't know unless you know your town, your area, and subgroup population impact, protected class population impact, and there's not drastic differences. There are some, and this is where, it's really, there's not a right answer, wrong answer. We've taken care of the parameters, and now it's a matter of best fit, which is a really local call.
So I think going back to those considerations, if we can go back to that slide. So this is kind of the roadmap and the guidance in terms of secondary considerations outside of the first 2, which have been taken care of, and those are required. So I think the question of those subgroups and the separation or balancing between those subgroups within the 5 trustee areas in any given scenario would potentially fall into one of these additional considerations.
That's correct.
Question? A question. We do have to consider public comments, don't we?
Yes.
And so that could be the second criteria, is whatever they come up with.
Absolutely. And as the superintendent mentioned, there will also be some informal community meetings that I think are happening virtually, where that will be an additional opportunity for the community to provide input on the maps that have been drafted thus far. So yes, public comment during the meeting as well as during those informal meetings. But yes, that is correct.
I have a question on one of the specific scenarios. On scenario 4, It looks to me, and you know, it's hard without street names being on here, but it looks to me like the neighborhood kind of is broken up. Where if you look at 41st Avenue where it meets Highway 1, and you see like a tiny carved out bit that's part of it is trustee area 1, part of it is trustee area 2. I'm thinking that's around Coffee Lane Park, that area. Is that
Yeah.
you know?
Oh, okay.
And I'm guessing that black line is their street. I'm not sure. It's hard to tell, but it does seem odd. I think that's different from all of the other maps where there's just that.
It is, you know, as you look between them, you know, these are a little bit, they have less nodes, if you will, geographically, right?
Right.
And that one does stand out. And this is where, you know, this scenario is mathematically possible. It fits. The question is, you know, and we don't know your town like you do, but it could fit, you know, locally. It could make sense to you and your stakeholders, and it might not. The math works, and then, you know, this is part of the vetting process.
Yeah, for example, there could be a community of interest that's split up by those nodes, and that may be something you want to let us know and say, you know, that won't work for us because, you know, this community really wants to stay together, for example, and that node kind of cuts that out. And then we would, you know, depending on if there was multiple of that kind of feedback, we'd be able to remove this as an option.
That is correct.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Where's
Sure.
Thurber Lane on here?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Thurber Lane, I'm having a really hard time.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about, just, you know, because the streets, just the arterial streets are pretty much on there right now.
Yeah.
So you know, like the building, I mean, the plot sizes. and
I'm sorry, I had a hard time hearing.
Me too.
So Judy, it's about 4 lines over, like
Yeah.
if you're looking at the up and down lines as they intersect with Highway
On
1.
which map?
I'm looking at I'm still
Are you
on
on 4?
4. Which one are you looking at?
Well,
2's a little clearer, I think, as far as that goes, and then you have, and I think, isn't that,
so if you look at the yellow part on 2,
Mhm.
that Dominican there.
That's what I
the
think,
big
yeah.
lot, the flat lot area. To the left.
But it has to be where people live, though.
we're just trying to get the road.
I'm just trying to
Yeah,
get
that's,
the
uh,
If that's Dominican, because it's a big lot, then that means that's Thurber Lane going up.
Right.
Yeah, I think so. If
Well, can't, I mean, Thurber Lane is more to the left of 41st Avenue. I mean, if you look, and then unless the map is off and over in there, are you looking at Old San Jose Road?
Well, you can, I
Upper-
assume that's Old San
between-
Jose Road.
Yeah,
the
between
yellow line.
SoCal and Drive. Yeah, that's Old San Jose Road right there. And then Thurber
Judy, I
is
think-
not on here.
No, I think it's like 1, 2, 3, 4 intersecting lines in the yellow. I think it's maybe the 4th intersecting line. One way to look at it is see where there's the gap between Benson and Winkle, and then go to the left. You know what I mean? You can, it's like the Santa Cruz Gardens kind of, you go up Thurber and then there's a little.
So is it this line, right? Right here. Is that Thurber? Because it goes all the way up.
Oh,
So
there.
we go
Oh,
with
got it.
here,
Okay,
and these-
Yeah,
it doesn't
Thurber
go all
goes
the way
up.
This is Thurber. Yes, this flat area there would be Dominicans. And that goes up. Well, there's a lot of homes up there. and it's
Right, right. Oh, I see.
definitely
Okay, I
an
see.
Area of unity.
Mhm.
And so I think it's important to be able to define where that goes. It's one way in and one way out. It's a bunch of homes up there.
And
I can work with the demographer on when we do some of the map sessions to maybe have some maps that have landmarks.
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Satellite.
exactly what I just made a note of, is to put a few major street names, landmarks on to help guide the eye.
I think the school locations would be helpful. I know those were on a previous version, but that really helps folks.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter on 4. I mean, it doesn't matter on 2 and it doesn't matter on 3 because it's all the same district. But
Right.
maps where it's possibly cutting it in half. Thank you.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
Oh,
No.
this is the first
gotta
of
note of that.
several of these input sessions. That's how it works.
Yeah, I'm trying to toggle between Google Maps and each one.
Well, I'm looking at the county GIS right now, and that has the layout of the school district and the street names on there as well too. But that's just a full district there. I don't know, it's a little bit right here.
And so it's hard to put all the streets on a map. So could there be like maybe a physical description, the main streets on the north, second streets on the left, third streets on the right, kind of thing?
Yeah, what I was noting is that we could just call out some of the boundary streets.
Yeah.
So you can see, where there is a street that forms a perimeter on some of these boundaries, and that coupling that with school point locations could make it pop a lot easier.
I think also any major like points of interest that would be helpful, that we could put a pin on so that the community has an easier time. I heard you guys mentioning some. If we could just maybe get a list of those, that might be helpful too.
Yeah, maybe just a couple of parks. Those are kind of good
Yeah.
reference points, some of the bigger parks in the area.
Right. Yeah, that'd be perfect.
All right, with that presentation, pardon me?
We have public comment.
Okay, regarding this.
For this item. We have 2 public comments from the same individual, except they think they are trying to clarify. The first public comment is from Annie Dugan. But why is the particular area carved out? Are they homes or apartments? There's a second email. I think that will clarify that. Second comment is from Annie Dugan. I should have clarified on scenario 4. Thank you.
Yeah, and I do not have at my fingertips the breakdown of single family versus dual family or multifamily, sorry, housing dwelling units here, but that is not a criteria that we use in looking at these maps. It is a population density algorithm. We're looking at just number of people, total population TP there. And given how the densities lie in this denser area right here, if you're going with a map scenario sequence that sort of expands in the middle, this trustee area 5, which you can see here, going up Sokol San Jose up here as an artery and sort of spreading out. If that's a path, that is a pathway to get on the north side here some equality in population size. If when you do that, then that forces some creative map making to get the same total population here below in this particular trustee area scenario. So that's the only reason why.
What's that?
It does effectively do that. Those are condos, high density apartments.
Well, I think that's the kind of local knowledge when we're talking about criteria that we can
Bingo.
select
Bingo.
the scenario. It's important.
Right.
There's a second.
Yeah. That they were on the together.
Gotcha, okay.
But just as another reminder for those who did not join us at the beginning of the meeting, the text line is down still.
Yes.
Yes, so if making comment, please comment to public comment at suesd.org. Thank you.
All right. Safe to say we move on? Good. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Public hearing.
I think they're gonna just stick around for the public hearing.
Okay,
Yep.
Mhm.
all right, so next we have a public hearing and May 8th, so for the public hearing regarding proposed composition of trustee areas, Scott.
So although we've definitely heard some public input already on the item itself, this is a follow-up item and an official public hearing. So we would like any input on the scenario maps that were presented in this first of several input sessions. So we're gonna call the public hearing to order officially.
Sure will.
So when we note the time.
Public hearing open right now.
Time for anybody from the public.
Can I ask just a question? It speaks to, the process speaks to a county board finally accepting the decision of this board,
County committee.
Yeah.
county committee, and who is, what is that committee comprised of, what individuals?
Well, legal counsel can help with what the normal constituency of the county committee that ultimately receives the recommendation from our board.
So if I'm hearing the question correctly, it's who comprises the county committee?
Correct.
Okay, I believe for your district, it is the County Office of Education. So the recommendation from your board will go to that county committee. They will review kind of the process that you've undergone in making this transition, and ultimately, approve or deny the process, and as well as the adoption of the particular map and sequencing schedule that this board adopted.
So is that county committee also the county board of education, or is it a committee that they have a standalone committee?
It's my understanding that it's the County Board of Education in the case of your district. Mhm. Yes.
Is there anything on email?
There is one email. This is Annie Dugan. Just would like to say thank you for your work and the clarification.
Absolutely.
And with that, I'm going to close public hearing.
Thank you, Elise. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you in 2 weeks.
See you
Okay.
soon. Okay, bye-bye.
All right, so next on the list are our action items. Let's go to 9A, consider approval of single plan for student achievement. Jessica.
Right, well, this is listed as an action item, as well as a first reading. I will let you know that I am going to request the approval of the plans when I'm kind of done with my summary. As the board knows, Ed Code does require schools to create a single plan for student achievement if state or federal funding is received by that school or the district. This year is no different than that, although we've had lots of different reports that we have created through the past 2 years in distance learning and so forth. This is not different than we've had in the past. These are the single plans for student achievement, just as you've seen before. Our school sites have gone through the same process that they've gone through every year. They've worked with their interest groups and their staffs looking at data and come up with a plan. As you probably were able to determine in reading the plans, they're not the same. They're all very different, and they're different for a reason. They're different because the schools have their own identity, they have their own assets, and they have their own areas for growth. Kind of as practice, boards may say, well, we'd like all of the goals to be similar from school to school because we want all kids to be proficient. It makes it very difficult, though, to have a school meet a goal when it's generalized. And so we really wanted the schools specifically this year to work on the metrics of that school, the composition of that school, and the interests of that school. And I think that is identified in each of the school plans as represented tonight. There are some themes that we can see through the plans, and one of them is there is clearly data-driven decision-making. The use of the iReady diagnostic is cited over and over again, and it was also talked about by Mr. Broadhurst tonight as a metric that's used to diagnose where students are currently and how they'll measure progress. The other themes that we can see in the plans are the tier 1 and tier 2 supports that are embedded in the actions associated with the goals: safety and wellness, language and literacy, and English learners. So those are some themes in the plan, though you'll see that they're all represented differently. It is my recommendation that the plans be approved by the board, but I'm happy to answer any questions relative to the plans. I've looked at them a number of times, but if you have a question about a specific page or a question about a specific action, please let me know.
Yeah, go ahead, Kate.
Quick question.
Sure.
So I'm guessing that not one person wrote all this.
Correct.
So is there a lot of site specific stuff, like particularly in a narrative,
There is all site-specific stuff in the narrative.
but from the sites?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. I do give feedback relative to the data that they're collecting, the types of goals that they're writing. Michelle gives a lot of feedback with regard to the budgets and those associated dollar amounts. So they're not running, kind of on their own. We do a lot of collaborative work. What I do like about these plans right now is that they are really authentic to the moment that they're being written.
Yeah.
And they do look different than they have in past years.
So I appreciate that. This site staff had a big input.
Yes, yes.
And I can see the differences.
I think this year more than ever, I
Yeah.
can see it evidenced.
I have one, question, just in the very first one for Santa Cruz Gardens, I think it's just a boo-boo about the year it was approved on, so it's page 1.
Yes.
Right, 10/29/21, right.
It's what's interesting. I'm so glad that you mentioned that. It's interesting that those are the lines that I don't look at. But I will definitely make a note of that, and we'll make that adjustment.
And all of that is to say, like, obviously with full appreciation for all of the work, not just to like zero in on the one little thing, but obviously, they put all this hard work in to get it approved by the deadline this year. So just want to make sure that was reflected. I really, when we get this board docket every year, it's like, oh, here's one with all of the pages that's not budget, but which I also very much enjoy reading. But it is really neat to see the similarities, but also the unique flavors of each of our schools, and really be able to see the input of the committee, and nice to be able to see again some of that normalcy coming back, very different from where we were a year ago. So
each site has its own culture,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
you can kind of see it more in this one than I have before.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else from board? Yeah, thank you for putting all that together. Do we have anything from public?
No, nothing on email.
Okay. So, say we move on to.
I move.
Okay. Okay.
Carolyn.
For second, for
Again.
approval regarding the single plan for student achievement, all in favor?
Aye.
It doesn't have to have to.
Opposed? No. Okay. Jessica, you're on for number
I'm so
B,
sorry.
approving district plan for EFF or
All right.
EEF.
Educator Effectiveness Grant Plan. And that's obviously, a term that you've seen before. It's a different law associated with this particular grant in this moment. And Michelle was just saying, wait, the SIPS plans need, two meetings. That is not the one that needs 2 meetings. This is the one that needs 2 meetings.
Got overly excited, sorry.
I started to get concerned. So if we were sideboarding, that's the reason. In this plan, the Educator Effectiveness Fund program provides funds to county offices of education and schools and school districts in the state. And it's the way that the finances are determined are algorithmic and based on CalPADS data and all of those other kinds of data that allow us to see how much is due us. This particular grant in this year is about $432,000, which we're really excited to have. money that we wouldn't have otherwise. And so the plan as it's been written is a loose plan, really focusing on 4 specific areas. One is new teacher onboarding and training, and we heard our principal at New Brighton talk a little bit about that. You know, it's really essential that we bring people in strongly with a firm understanding of our curriculum, our practices, and our instructional practice. The second is data-driven inquiry and collaboration time that you'll see in the grant plan. The next thing you'll see is the distributed leadership and committee work related to building relevant professional learning experiences. And then the last thing is the EL instructional coaching. So as you kind of take a look at those year-to-year breakdowns, it's a 4-year plan. We've broken it down in 4 component parts. We are actually going to start it this year. We weren't going to actually start the planning of it this year, but we have set aside funding to do it this year because we really want to make sure the teachers that we bring in between now and next year's start are going to be ready to go. So it's my recommendation to the board that you approve this plan, although we will bring it back again for the next reading. So you don't have to approve it tonight, but it will be my recommendation for it to be approved at that time.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Okay. Anything?
Nothing on email.
Okay, well, is there a motion to approve the?
Nope.
Huh?
Next, we do that next.
I'm going to recommend it next time. This is the first reading, just so you know, unless there's any adjustments
Oh,
that
I'm sorry.
the board
Okay,
wants to make.
Okay, I thought for some reason it had to be approved twice, and I don't know.
No, I
thought-
threw a wrench
Right,
in
so
my language,
basically, we just are tabling this till next meeting then.
or
Got
giving
it,
me
okay.
any feedback or questions.
Okay, very good. Okay, okay, got it now. All right, okay, well, we're good to go then. All right, Scott, 9C, consider approving the equity impact action plan, and this is our 3rd.
Yes, sir. Good. As you know, learning about equity and unconscious bias has been a focus of our district's work at all levels for the last about 1.5 years, including a really highly committed racial justice task force. From that work, this equity impact action plan has been developed. The purpose of the plan is to serve as a foundational document that can help guide our work in the coming years in this most important area. The specific adjustments that have been made this time around are noted in the memo. To summarize, there's a focus on bringing more consistency of language, clarity, simplicity of language, explanations of appendices where necessary. And, as I said, all of the specific to those are summarized in the memo.
All right, and then everybody looked it over and good to go. Are any questions, comments? No, okay.
So, we have to come up with something, and this is, I consider, a living document. And I think going forward, I would hope that someday we can get it down to like a 1-page thing, that when you go onto our website, you can click on it and you get what it is and why, and then what we're gonna do about it. Pretty much that's it. I appreciate all of the other stuff about all the work that was done and who did it and everything. But it really, as far as a statement goes, it's a little more than a statement. It's a journey story. So, but again, I think that we need to put a stake in the ground and have something going on. So, it's not perfect.
Can we approve the plan, but not the way it's written? Is that possible? Because I want people to be able to use it, but I just don't think it's ready to be put on our website. But I want people to start being able to, okay, if I want to make some changes, the ideas are good, but the way it's showed on paper, I think it still needs improvement. So I don't know if it's possible to untangle those two things, because I don't want the process to be put on hold when it's important work. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah.
It makes sense. I think the answer is no, I don't think we can approve the plan, not approve the work. So,
Okay.
So going back to something, we have something now. Could we put on our governance calendar that we look at this thing again this year? We'll put it out there and maybe get somebody to respond to it. But as far as it being in granite, I'm not comfortable with this being the one. It's only because it's just so difficult to, what is going on here when you read it. So tell me, the question is, tell me what it is you're going to do and what do you want me to do? I don't get that from reading. I do get a lot of information.
Yeah, right.
I think it's just a lot of repetitive sections that just don't need to all be there. And there's still too many complicated sentences.
But I don't want to hold it up.
So you're saying you want one page?
It would be lovely to have it, but that's my personality type. And
I mean, I'm fine with that document that's more than one page, but I mean, you can see this is all yellow. The executive summary, these are all the sentences that I think are problematic, and that's all of it. So I don't know what to say. I don't want to be the one that's holding on to making this process not start, but
I have a suggestion. What if we change the word plan to journey, and it's our equity impact action journey, signifying its progress.
I like that.
Oversimplifying that, sorry.
I was gonna say, I like the idea behind that, but I do feel like being true to the intention of the task force, I feel like it was this goal in mind to help propose a plan, which the board would then consider and hopefully approve. I hear what both of you were saying. It took me a while to even just be able to wrap my head around what the recommendations are, because of course I wanted something like I could hold in my hands and understand like what we're going to do with this. I agree the way that a lot of the language presents itself can be confusing and wordy and doesn't match what I would say like the tone and the reading level, if that's the right term, of most documents that this board and this district puts out for public consumption. It's just a little different. The voice is different. I personally am comfortable considering approving it as, again, like a living document that we can continue to edit if that's something that's allowed, Superintendent.
well, I think we do that with some other documents. We do that knowing a governance calendar,
Yeah.
for example, is a living document. So I don't
The
think
LCAP,
that's, yeah.
we approve LCAP every year. We'll certainly change that up a lot.
And I guess I would just say like it is different. No, this is a different plan.
Yeah.
There's not boxes in a system that we fill in like so many of our other plans. It's a stretch. It's something that we're not required to do. Something that I don't think most districts do. So maybe that's part of it, is that it doesn't fit a mold. It's out of the box. And so I certainly can say that, our consultants have produced similar plans with other districts, and as you heard from Dr. Holt especially, this is in line with that work that has been done. But that's not to say what I'm hearing loud and clear is I guess what I'm saying is, as much as I would love to have an approval, to see half-hearted. And so that's not a place that I want to be in. And I think rather than trying to rewrite this, if we go that direction, what I'd rather do is have this be a behind the scenes piece maybe, and to write something in a language that is more with the flavor of other documents in our district, which I can certainly produce. This has been an effort to try to take the work that's been done in line with the guidance, from Nicole and Dr. Holt. And I know that that voice is respected, but what I'm hearing is that this doesn't ring true to what we want. And I want it to ring true. I want it to be like, yes, this represents us, and I'm certainly not hearing that. If I bring it back, I'd like to bring it back in a more condensed, straightforward document that we're more used to processing than this out of the box effort. But I certainly, I don't want to skate by with a half-hearted approval. I don't think that sets the right tone.
So I do a wholehearted approval, kind of what you're saying, Scott, and approve a plan, and then put on the agenda for the future a statement that is more concise and to the point and descriptive of what it is we believe in and what we want to do. So, there is a statement I believe in here, but it's a draft statement, so it's not like the official one. So I think this document gives us a way to approve this document as a plan of action, and the action being to create a, memorialize where we're at with this in a shorter document.
Well, that's certainly in line with the thinking that, this work is not a one and done sort of thing.
Right.
And anything can be pulled out. And as you know, we're planning board study sessions and sessions with our administrators and other staff to continue this work. So that is not, atypical for, pulling out certain sections and refining that. That's, I would envision something akin to a racial equity part of our website where several of these documents, are uploaded and telling our ongoing story, not just all on one plan.
It seems that the document starting on page 16 or 260 of the docket is kind of the summary that we're looking for, and that's been changed from last time and clarified. So I think that's a good jumping point.
The first time, I don't know if any other districts are doing this, so we can't plagiarize, and we are inventing the wheel here. And so, I think we need to keep this alive and keep it going. We need to take some action, but knowing that, we need to sharpen the pencil and put that on the agenda, the pencil sharpening.
So then, okay, with the conversation, so where do you want this document to go tonight?
Well, if you're asking for a motion, I would give one.
Well, I mean, there's been some discussion with somebody about changing the journey and or wording it. I look at it and I mean, it is a big document for the website, and I don't see a lot of things that others have seen. However, I mean, if we want to bring it back again next week, or approve it with then update it as it's on the website.
And Ted, I think everyone, I'm not saying bring it back to change the word. I'm just saying, like, in our heads, it's almost like we need to make that adjustment. It's a journey, that's all. But it's a plan to guide our journey.
Okay.
And talk about what we've done.
And I would add that when we look at the LCAP and the budget, especially the budget where we have what the heck happened and what's going to happen, that is similar to this. It is, unless you know what that language all is and everything like that, you don't know what that means. We do that every year. We put that out all the time. So buried in our documents is stuff that we understand, but not the public. So this is similar to that. There's a lot of stuff in this plan That is, you need to be an educator in the biz to know what it is we're talking about. So I see this as okay as a plan, and that's what it says it is. That is the final word, not yet.
All right.
Okay, so.
Yeah. Is it, the question is it gonna be on our website as is?
If we approve it, it's gonna go on the website, correct? And then it could be edited as it's on the website, right? Or do you want to wait until everything's perfect until it goes on the website?
I'm not, I mean, it doesn't need to be perfect. But
There's
a little-
no, there's, since this is a voluntary plan, there's no, that mandates us to put it on our website. Of course, that's how we tend to communicate most things these days, but there's nothing saying that it necessarily has to go on the website. But again, an approval with, yes, but don't put it on the website. Feels that hard, right? So again, if we bring it back, I would not want to bring it back in its current form. I would want to rewrite it in language more similar to some of the other plans.
And it may require more than 2 weeks. It seems like rewriting this document is kind of a lengthy position.
I could gauge that as a
Is it a reasonable compromise or offering if, like on the front page of the plan where it says, you know, first presented on this date, approved on this date, and then underneath, if there was some statement like this is a, you know, this is a living, evolving document as we continue this work, the content can change and be updated, but the board adopts the recommendations made by the Racial Justice Task Force. Like, to me, that's really the heart of it. They've made some recommendations, and like there are a lot of words and there's a lot of summarizing and plan information, but to me, the heart of it is taking the recommendations. That's something I would be comfortable with. I appreciate the recommendations and the heart of the plan. I would like to see, you know, eventual updates to some of the language, but that's a way that I could see to move forward tonight. Just a thought.
I feel comfortable with that. I mean.
It's almost like when government will put, for example, GASB, they'll put a rule out for comment for like a month or so, and then after they get the comments, they may do something or not. So I think this is essentially where we're at with this, is let's approve this, put it out there, and then if it's really bad, then we'll come back and we'll do some wordsmithing. But I don't know if we can hit like a grand slam on the first swing of the bat here. So, you know, it's small ball, good singles.
Okay, well, I'm impatient. I want to just throw it out there because pick it out of the box. Be the first one. So, all right. So I'm lost here, and so I think we are here also. And so let's make a motion, and then I think you kind of understand what they're saying is that you want it on the website with and then edit it after it's on the website.
You know,
what I heard, if I'm trying to
Yeah, go ahead,
paraphrase,
please.
is a motion on the table to consider approving it, go with a statement on the cover page indicating its nature as a living document.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
That was amazing. Yes, I think that's what.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what will be the process for updating this living document?
And I think that's something that we could develop together. I'm judging from the question that maybe you're looking for something
just have-
hard and fast, like every board meeting will bring it back.
No, I don't want to see it at the board meeting necessarily, but I wonder how long it's gonna be on the website in its current form, I guess, is my question.
So that's the reason I don't feel comfortable, I mean, it's, with all due respect, it's very clear, that even putting the language as a, the living document, you're not comfortable with, and if we're not comfortable with it, then we shouldn't do it.
I mean, it's just me though, I can be the.
Okay, so there, are you gonna add another sentence to this, and that this is the initial plan for this? And that as in all plans of in operations, it is up to the superintendent to develop the ARs for that. And so this is going to be a document that is going to need to be teased out. And so perhaps what we do is we approve this plan with the added line that it will be the responsibility of the superintendent to maintain the plan in a plausible way.
So I really genuinely do appreciate the efforts, but I think that's too many caveats and explanations.
I know.
And so what I would rather do is go back to the drawing board and come back with a much different looking plan.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, I think Trustee Freeman, I'm the one that should be sorry.
I think we can approve this and still do that.
I don't feel comfortable.
Okay.
Okay. I know, sorry.
Well, I mean, we had incredible work done by this committee, and like none of this is reflecting on the work that they did. It's just, I think several of us were kind of surprised that at the way the package kind of came in, and I agree with you that like this should be something that we're all like 100% like really proud of and excited to share. And
See, I am, but
I-
I don't see what everybody else sees too. So, and instead of, arguing and,
yeah,
I mean, I accept everybody's opinions of what needs to be done on it, and that's, that's fine, and so we want to table it.
I'm confident that it can come back in a different form that pleases the board.
And I want to make clear, it's not the recommendations that are the problem. It's just the format, the wording, so. Two different things.
Really no.
Okay, so we're gonna table that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, thank you for putting all that together and sorry about that, so.
There's nothing on email.
9C is.
nothing on email.
All right, correspondence. Do we have any correspondence? This minute? Nothing.
No, we don't.
Okay, future agenda items. Okay, so is there a motion to adjourn?
I move.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.